baby's sister, saw the attack.
Yeah, exactly. Just when you thought this story couldn't get any more horrifying, it manages to. B.B. King's parents have released a statement, a very powerful, courageous statement to tell us more about what happened at that dance class. And it turns out that her 9-year-old sister was actually there and witnessed the attack. So this family are not only coping with the loss of the youngest daughter, but also trying to deal with which will be inevitably a lifelong trauma for their other little girl. And I think it's just after the chaos and mayhem that we've seen as the fallout of this attack, we're just, again, bringing it back to what initially prompted everything, and just seeing this clearly again as a reminder of what's an awful tragedy and what we should really be talking about.
Yeah, and it's also the top story of the Sunday Express as well, with the same picture of the family. And the reporting there, Lucy, says that, you know, the parents, Lauren and Ben, have said that Jeannie, who was 9, who saw the attack, has shown incredible strength and courage. But as Amy was mentioning there, this is trauma now that everyone in the family is going to be feel really acutely.
Yeah, it's really interesting that this story is coming to the fore in this way, because it isn't just about the events that happened, and they were so tragic. And it's good that we're reminded that this is what was really the most important story of the last 10 days. But in terms of the survivor guilt that someone could have as a result of witnessing something like this, but also being the one that escaped when you now know that your sibling wasn't able to survive, the repercussions of that can be really extreme, and huge therapeutic interventions can be really beneficial from a very early stage. I'm very glad in a way that the family are publicising this, because it now knows that everybody knows that Jeannie King did actually undergo this trauma herself, which, as you say, could have lifelong repercussions. But I sincerely hope it doesn't, in the sense that there are therapeutic interventions that can be made that can really ameliorate any kind of trauma and suffering. But it will be about prioritising this sense that you didn't maybe leave your sister, that actually you shouldn't have run away, maybe you should have tried to rescue her. All of that will need to be processed, and it might not just be for the parents to do that, but also the wider community to support this little girl.
But at the age of, she's only 9.
So little, that's the thing, she's so little still, isn't she?
But has what happened to her,
and you can definitely do that in age-appropriate language, and you need to, because this is something that needs to be processed, and to kind of sweep it under the carpet and to try to pretend that it didn't happen, or that it wasn't as traumatic as the little girl experienced, is going to be really important. But the key message will be, there wasn't anything really that you could have done, because that will probably be one of the that could be one of the things that the child is very distressed by. Could I not have saved my sister?
It's just tragic, isn't it? I suppose you say as well, the fact that the story is being publicised now and that we're talking about it will hopefully show the family that people are thinking about them, give them some strength as well, and of course give Jeannie some strength, who is going to need a lot of support throughout the rest of her life. All right, let's move on to the other stories surrounding this, and we'll look at the Times now. And this is a warning from the Director of Public Prosecutions, Stephen Parkinson, talking about rioters facing 10-year terms. We've had a number of people involved in this sentence to terms, 32 months, I think. To recollection, is one of the longest we've had so far, but I guess this is the rest of them that are going to be caught up in all of this.
Yes, it's an interesting story, because some people have said that the sentencing is too severe, that actually there are certain categories of offence that actually don't justify this kind of tariff. But I think what's really happening here is it's part of the crackdown to try to make sure that the riots don't escalate. And there had been fears that there might be riots tonight because of the start of the football season, that there might be riots tomorrow because it's apparently going to be 30 degrees and people will be, running around having had a whole day in the sun, maybe with some alcohol consumed. What are the ways in which you can actually clamp down on this, making it really, really visible that you are having a zero tolerance? And I think the front pages of the newspapers in the last couple of days that have had mugshots of the people who've been arrested and charged and imprisoned has been all part of the way to de-escalate this particular situation, so that people, we're very imitative creatures as human beings, and when we see someone in a very perilous situation, perhaps going to jail, we may very well think, well, that could be me, and therefore I won't change my behaviour.
But I think
to that extent, I think this is really important. What I thought was interesting that the Chief Prosecutor said, it's not about revenge, it's about justice. And for a lot of people, the sense of unfairness was that was underpinning a lot of the protests that were taking place. So in the sense that you want to see justice seen to be done, for some people that just won't be enough.
Right, Amy?
I think the thing is that the government need to be hard and they needed to be tough on this, because it's an absolute nightmare, isn't it, to see a breakdown of law and order as a government's worst case scenario. So they've done exactly the right thing. And interestingly, people have been getting sentences for inciting violence online, but not actually committing any violence. And I think a lot of people, when they see rioters will face 10-year terms and people inciting violence online on social media will also be facing jail sentences, as we've seen, then a lot of people will have questions about those at the top of that ladder. What about your Elon Musks? What about your Tommy Robinsons? Will they also face the consequences of their actions? Because we can't just have this lawlessness online. So we've heard a lot of this week about this two-tier policing. In my opinion, the only two-tier policing we've seen has been between the little foot soldiers on the bottom and those at the top, the Elon Musks and the Tommy Robinsons. So I want to see a bit of equity in the law for that, surely, because they have caused so much damage.
Well, that is where the Online Safety Act, which I think the government are looking at, will come in. I mean, it's coming into force in the next few months, but I think it's going to be reviewed as well, the government have said. Let's look at the other aspects of all of this, with the tough sentences and with people potentially being sent to prison for 10 years. You know, the Justice Secretary here in The Observer talking about the impact it's going to have on the criminal justice system. We know that prisons are already massively overstretched. We're going to start releasing some people early in the next few weeks, aren't we?
Yeah, so interesting piece here. Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, has written inside the Telegraph, and her message really is that the justice system is so broken that the amount of work that has been required just in the last 8 to 10 days will actually set back efforts to rebuild this system. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's quite a shocking statement. It's a headline grabber. But I think back to what happened in the pandemic and the way in which a creaking NHS service really pulled itself together. The scientific community accelerated, you know, the way that you could develop vaccines, rolling out vaccines. In a crisis, what you often find is that people find not just the resources, but the will to really make big changes very, very quickly. And instead of being very negative about everything, what I wish is that Shabana Mahmood had said, this is a crisis. We have a broken system. This is actually going to really be the making of us. I think she could have turned that into a really positive story to say that we're actually going to crack this, as opposed to focusing far too much on the fact that, yes, it had been left broken in the first place.
But I think it's interesting that you bring up COVID, because one of the reasons COVID was such a crisis and we struggled to deal with it was because of the lack of preparedness. And I think, again, this is testament
not just
to,
in this country, though, it was worldwide.
5 weeks of a Labour government. We've had 14 years of Tory government bringing us up to this point. We've had cuts to police. I think we've had cuts to courts, 600 less courts, cuts to prisons. At the time of the riots, there were 700 spaces left in our prisons. We were so woefully unprepared for what was coming. I think her piece speaks to that. Of course, yes, they've dealt with it fantastically as well as best they could, but what they were equipped to deal with it was woeful. Like the state of the criminal justice system, a criminal justice system where only 2% of sexual assaults are actually charged, which means 90%, 98% aren't. That's the legacy that they were given. So
if you accept that, if you say that that is the case, absolutely. How are you going to deal with that? And my sense is this could have been a moment of saying we're really going to grab this by the scruff of the neck and we're actually going to turn it around.
They really have, though. But I think it's fair to say that the tools that they had to do that were limited because of the state of the criminal justice system.
Yeah, absolutely right. And look, and the question always comes back to money, doesn't it, as well, with both of those sort of ambitions.
Money, but also, funnily enough, I think it's about the will. And that's why I went back to the pandemic. I think there was such an amazing will to try to find a solution. And I would argue that that was a global problem, not just a lack of preparedness in the UK. And the same could be said here, that you've got a fantastic opportunity to really reinvent the justice system. OK, guys, good discussion. Plenty more, of course, to come. And we'll stay with the stories on the front pages and some of the inside pages of tomorrow morning's newspapers. Now, coming up, polls show that Kamala Harris has moved ahead of Donald Trump in 3 key states, and we'll talk about that next as well.
I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
Our street! Our street!
Well, the plan seems to be to head to the police station where the policeman who fired the shots was based.
And everything you know, his memories is all gone.
In almost every corner, this town has been completely destroyed by the fire. I've witnessed the remarkable passion for politics here, but the anger too.
We have to get Trump out of the White House.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
I report on the biggest stories from around the world. This is a town that is effectively encircled by the Russians.
You say it's all fabrication, what's happening in Bucha?
Destroyed my nation.
We take you to the heart of stories that shape our planet. I can hear now quite a few explosions in the distance here in Jerusalem. A very violent series of confrontations here. What do you think of ISIS?
Everybody here knows the truth of ISIS.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Tanks, heavy vehicle.
Why only in America?
People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. We're joined, of course, by Amy and Lucy. So let's carry straight on with the front of the Observer now. We're going to do the sidebar story, but the main picture, as you can see, tumults there and Vice President Kamala Harris. And this is kind of fascinating that she's only just become the nominee and already seems to have pulled ahead in a couple of the swing states.
Yeah, and I think this is actually quite unexpected. When Biden stepped down, I think people had reservations about Kamala because at the time J.D. Vance had just been announced Trump's VP. We thought, oh, he's going to connect with the Rust Belt, and will she? She's a bit elite, she's a bit Washington. And actually, the complete opposite has happened, and she's soaring ahead. I think she has, because it's a testament to her authenticity, to her charisma, that Trump could really only dream of, and I think that's actually coming across. And particularly interesting that it's in Pennsylvania, which is where the attempted assassination occurred, and that was really. Do you remember when that happened? And everybody said he's got it, it's in the bag, and now turns out it's absolutely not, and it's. And I think she's 4 points ahead currently.
She is, yeah. So it's Wisconsin, Pennsylvania and Michigan. Pennsylvania is interesting as well, not just because of the assassination, but also because...
Josh Shapiro.
Exactly. Before she picked Tim Walz, Josh Shapiro is the governor there, and everyone was saying that he should be the pick, but perhaps he wasn't needed.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, one often talks about a bounce, and I guess the feel-good bounce is that she picked a running mate and There's some name recognition.
He is such a bounce.
And he is a bounce. He has his own baggage. But as you say, Josh Shapiro, who may have actually been able to swing the state of Pennsylvania, maybe he didn't. Maybe they didn't need him. But I think what is interesting is that most people agree that actually these polls pre-Labor Day don't really count for very much. That because the majority of Americans aren't really paying attention, they're all on holiday. It's only really when they come back in September that people need to start to pay attention. However, the really interesting thing about polling is, or in politics in general, is that it's all about momentum. And if you have a momentum at this stage, it could very well give you that power to surge forward to November.
And it is interesting in American politics as well, because they call it the October surprise, but it can come at any time in the year. There will be some kind of speed hump they have to get over, or something that falls in their way.
Hillary Clinton email situation.
Precisely, right? Or the tape with Donald Trump, which didn't affect him as badly as we thought it was going to affect him. So it will be fascinating to see when that thing falls in these guys' lap, how they deal with it at that point.
Yeah. And at the moment, I think the polls will go up and down as new bits of information come out.
Yeah.
The key thing is what's going to happen at the end of September. Where is the momentum in September? That will be the most important.
Also, you know, with someone like Trump, you've not just got what might happen there, but you've got imminent court cases coming up. You've got more potentially leaked tapes. You don't know he's the most unpredictable person that we've ever had, I think, in not only American politics, but politics. Like, it is just unpredictable.
It's good to watch. If it wasn't so serious, it'd be hilarious, but it's very serious, so it's not that funny. Let's move on, if we can, to the Olympics. We'll go to the Sunday Express now. I've got a double-page spread here. Headlines there, fans get a kick out of medalists. We've got some taekwondo, some diving. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last night as well, but final day
we can talk
tomorrow.
about it every night.
I know, precisely what I'm saying.
It's so fantastic.
I'm really going to miss it.
So feel good. Yeah. I am going to miss it. I'm an Olympic virgin. This is my first Olympics that I've been really excited by. And I've been fascinated by every single sports that I didn't even know existed, like artistic swimming. But there was an amazing bronze, a very unexpected bronze win by Georgia Bell in the 1,500 metres, which was exceptional. And what I loved about that particular race was you could see the strategy. You could actually see what she was doing in the course of the race. That was very exciting. And I think, you know, there's been... Sam Friedman on Twitter has produced some amazing statistics every night showing you what number of medals we had, and we're so consistent. We've got the same number of medals in London, in Rio, in Paris, in Tokyo, at exactly the same stage. So it's just very exciting.
And there are so many different sports now. I mean, this morning I was watching the breaking, which is essentially the break dancing. Olympic sport? Like, had no idea.
Controversial. There are some people that may
the climbing,
think it shouldn't
absolutely
be
amazing.
sport. I mean, the climbing, I think definitely. I'm not sure about golf.
But the thing like BMX, I mean, there's been so much talent on show at lots of different age groups that actually there's something so inspiring.
There is, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it's the juxtaposition of the absolute chaos and mayhem that we've had going on in the news cycle here with this little haven that is Paris.
Which is why I think it's going to be so sad when it's over, because you have to be able to do it. And the inspiration piece is really well put, because I have been watching it with my little boy, and he has been just blown away by all the different sports he's been able to see. And that's the point of it, isn't it? You get to show these kids who may not have any sort of exposure to certain kinds of sports what they could end up doing.
And again, as I said before, we're very imitative creatures. So when small children see people winning, when they see medals going around necks, when they see people tearing up around a national anthem, they can quite legitimately think, that could be me. And I'm going to try and swim harder. I'm going to try and join a running club. I'm going to join archery.
When I'm watching it.
Well, as I said on the show very recently, Adam Peaty is, I regard him as my own private swimming coach, because he has videos on YouTube. I have improved my swimming exponentially because of Adam Peaty.
That is fantastic.
So I'm, regularly... He can't retire, is basically what I'm saying. But it's all due to the Olympics.
The thing is about the Olympics now and Team GB, it's a little bit like the England football team. I was speaking to the director of cycling just yesterday, and he talks about when Team GB, I think it was in Atlanta or maybe in Barcelona, won 10 medals. They weren't very good. They weren't really getting loads of medals. And it's only recently, with funding and with sort of
well, it's
real
basically
focus on
Sir John Major creating the National Lottery and saying, most of the money must be ploughed into sport, because I think there was a time where we were just hideously embarrassed at how few medals we came home with.
Yeah.
And now we just regularly assume that it's going to be in the 60s.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Which it is. I think we're on 61 or 62 at
And
the
what
moment.
careers that these young people are going to have ahead of them. I was reading about, what's the name of the young girl? Is it the one that we saw on the front page of the
Keely
Sun?
Hodgkinson.
Yeah,
and her bikini
and
swimwear
how
line.
she's projected to make £2 million next year off sponsorship, of all the opportunities that will come with her success at the Olympics.
Yeah, it's brilliant stuff. All right.
22 years old.
Good for Keely. All right, well, that's the end of it tomorrow and the end of our discussion for now, guys. Thanks very much for that. Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Now, northern parts look quite unsettled over the next week. The south will be drier and hot tomorrow and on Monday, which looks like bringing the highest temperature of the year so far. There'll be a muggy start in the south with extensive low cloud bringing hill and coastal fog, but it will be sunnier, cooler and fresher elsewhere. A few showers in the far north. The showers will fade tomorrow morning and the cloud over southern Britain will slowly thin and break. Most places will then be fine, but the south of Ireland will become dull and damp. Southern Britain will turn very warm inland, but it will be nearer average elsewhere. Expect quite a stiff breeze in the south and the west. The afternoon won't change much, but Ireland's going to brighten up while the southwest may catch a late shower. Monday will be hot in the south, 33 degrees Celsius possible, but expect thundery downpours in the cooler North Island and Northern Ireland will be dry. All right, coming up on Sky News at 11. The parents of BB King, the little girl killed in the Southport attack, pay tribute to their precious daughter and thank their community for their love and support.